Noble here, we're going to be looking at an Alliance member's attacks trying to make a loss and out into a win. And the first thing we need to notice is the spider defensive troops. It's good to know that the infantry is their weakness, but the more we can eliminate with the abilities, the better. By dropping the A10 strike way up here, that splash damage that comes with it could have been moved down here where these spiders are walking by. If dropped right here, then we could have weakened or taken out these defensive buildings with that strike. So we're taking out defensive troops and hurting buildings. Now the next attack is going to be a Hellfire missile used on defensive troops, which in my opinion is near useless as it has little to no splash damage. If dropped on two buildings that are adjacent to each other, it can take out these two if dropped right in between them, but that's really tricky to do. But using them against defensive troops is really a waste. It could have been used up here to finish off these two, if not finished off earlier by the A10 strike, or it could have been used on any of these to weaken them up or take them out and essentially get us more command points to use with the bulk of our attack. Now it's good to know that since we've used our abilities already and we still have defensive troops up, the best thing you can do now is try and drop one infantry here, say, one infantry here, say, and then drop the rest of them right in the middle of those two. These spiders are going to be attracted to this one, these are going to be attracted to this one, and then they're of course going to die because there's only one of them. But then their bulk of our infantry is sitting right here. Those spiders are then going to jump this way. Now the reason that I say way out here is that it's away from the defensive buildings. We can attack the spiders, we can take on the spiders with the infantry troops away from the defensive buildings and take those out before we send in the rest of our attack. Now that we've dropped the rest of our troops on the side that would have been weakened, which is a good move, right here is where control groups A, B, and C would have really come into play and been effective, as since we haven't taken any of these defensive buildings out and our infantry are way in front of our tanks, which have the higher HP. We could have selected infantry as, say, a control group, and moved the infantry back here without using a flare and saved their lives, because this mortar's splash damage is going to do pretty significant damage to them even with the healing on them. And from here on out, it's pretty much just the defensive buildings are just having their way with everything that we have left. Okay, we're going into the second attack now. We see the spiders are back up, but this time when we start our attack, we see they're not moving. So it's going to be a little harder to use our A10 strikes on defensive buildings if they were, say, out here. But luckily they're pretty near some buildings, so that's going to work out in our favor. We drop the first A10 up here and see how this one's damaged. This one should be too, but sometimes it doesn't show. If we'd have dropped it not necessarily right in the center of them because of that splash damage, we could have dropped it right in here and taken out this, or hurt it like it is, and maybe taken out all three of these buildings, giving us more command points. Learning the A10 splash damage range is really important to attacks, because you can learn where can you drop this and get the most use out of it. Like, I would drop mine right here, take out all four of those. You could drop it right here in the center of these, take out all four of these. You could drop it in the center of these, take out these two. More so put it down in here, take out all four of those, or hurt all four of those. It's really, the A10 strike is really effective when used with its maximum range effectiveness. Now what we've done right here is we've dropped these infantry so close to these defensive buildings that's gonna hurt. If we have to drop right here, then they immediately drop a flare over in here or back down at the bottom of the map. Get these infantry with low HP away from these defensive buildings. They're strong versus spiders, but against these defensive buildings, they're not going to last very long. And because we can't see where the drop zone is on this replay, we could have dropped them maybe more over in here, and then flared them out here to fight these spiders away from these buildings. What we're going to see right here is the Hellfire missile used on a guard tower. While it was a good idea to take out a defensive building with the Predator with the Hellfire missile this time, the guard towers have probably the weakest HP, if not it is the weakest HP defensive building that you're ever going to face. So, good idea on the defensive building, but let's move that to a mortar if you're using ground troops. Let's move it to the Patriots if we're using air troops. Or if you don't know whether this is going to be a laser or the minigun, it's a good idea to use Predators on domes because you just don't know what they're going to be. Lasers, of course, attack ground only, whereas the machine guns or the miniguns that come out can attack air or ground. So it's best to use them against that. If you're going full ground and it's a low-level command center, it's best to take out these mortars because they have a lower HP. With the dome closed, they have more defensive capabilities when they're closed than when they're open. So taking out these mortars are just a safe bet if you're going to go ground. Now that we've dropped our infantry, we don't give them enough time to take out the defensive troops. And the biggest mistake of this attack is that they drop for our tanks and tomahawks are going to be right in this area. This can hit them, this can hit them, this can hit them. If we move those defensive troops, if we move this drop out as far away from the base as we can, we give the range of the tomahawks and a little bit of range from the tanks a chance to really be effective. By dropping them right here and subjecting them to so much defensive buildings right off the bat, especially this mortar's splash damage, it just really goes haywire very quickly. We see the infantry's getting destroyed by the mortar. This mortar, now that we've dropped in here, these tomahawks have very little HP. The lasers are going to take out the tanks because the longer they're on a target, the more damage they continue to do. And it's too late to drop flares. We continue going through this attack, and it's really like we have no defensive buildings taken out, and we only have 3 tanks, and now no infantry. So, where you drop your troops, where you drop your abilities, knowing your A-10's range, knowing your Hellfire missiles capability, knowing the HP of the defensive buildings that you're facing, knowing what the difference in the looks of them are, it can really make a difference. And knowing how to work with your command points, knowing how to work with your troops, using control groups to move your infantry, to move your tanks, to move your tomahawks or your helicopters or whatever you're using. Using control groups and your abilities, your powers to the maximum efficiency is really the key in learning how to make a successful attack and not lose troops every time you go into war. And I really hope this helps anybody who watches. So thank you.